everything you think you are, everything you think is real, it's all a lie. Not in the way they tell you to doubt conspiracy theories or question political narratives, but in a way so fundamental, so absolute, that even your doubts are part of the illusion. From the moment you could think, you were conditioned to believe in separateness. You were given a name, an identity, and a history to carry as if they were real. You were told you were a body, a person, a thing that exists in time, moving from past to future. But all of that is an illusion. What if I told you that the one watching, the one aware of these words right now, is not separate from the infinite? That you were never truly lost, never disconnected, never anything other than pure awareness itself? You don't need to seek enlightenment. You only need to remember what was never forgotten. But if that's true, why does it feel like we've forgotten? Why does the world feel so real, so divided, so concrete? To answer that, we need to go back to the moment you first fell asleep inside the dream. The first illusion you were taught was that you are separate, separate from the world, separate from others, separate from whatever you think of as divine. You were given a name and told, "This is you." But who decided that? Before language, before thought, before anyone told you who you were, you simply existed. No labels, no borders, no division, just presence. And yet, over time, you were convinced that you were something small, something individual, something apart from the whole. It was subtle at first. You learned to identify with your body, your thoughts, your emotions. You were praised for achievements, scolded for mistakes, and taught that you were the one responsible for all of it. Every success became personal. Every failure became personal. And with each new layer of identity, the illusion of separateness deepened. You started seeing life through a filter, me and them, right and wrong, before and after. But none of it was ever real. It was only perception. Perception trained into you so deeply that it became the lens through which you see the world. But have you ever noticed the moments when that lens cracks? When you're standing in nature and feel an inexplicable connection to everything? When you're lost in music, forgetting yourself completely? When you look into someone's eyes and just for a moment see something beyond the person, beyond their name, beyond their story? Those moments are glimpses of truth. The mind tries to explain them away. It was just a feeling, just a trick of the brain. But that's the illusion speaking. The greatest lie ever told wasn't spoken. It was assumed. The belief that you are separate from existence itself is the foundation of suffering. Because when you believe you are separate, you believe you are incomplete. And if you are incomplete, you will always seek something outside yourself to make you whole. Love, success, validation, security. You chase these things as if they will finally fill the void. But the void was never real. You were never separate. You only believed you were. This is why people suffer. Not because life is cruel, not because the universe is against them, but because they are chasing something they never lost. The moment you believe you are only the wave and forget you are also the ocean, you start fearing the shore. You start measuring your existence in moments, successes, and failures, rather than recognizing that you are the vast, infinite expanse that holds all of it. And this is where the system thrives. A world built on the illusion of separateness is a world easy to control, because people who believe they are incomplete are always searching for completion. They are always looking for answers in religion, in politics, in material success. They are always looking for someone to follow, someone to save them, someone to tell them who they are. But what if no one could? What if the truth was something no book, no institution, no leader could ever give you, because it was never missing in the first place? Some truths are too deep to be spoken openly. If you want to go beyond the surface, join our free Insights Academy newsletter below, where we reveal hidden knowledge they don't want you to find. You'll even get a free copy of the Kybalion for a limited time. So if the illusion of separateness is so fragile, why do we keep believing in it? The answer is simple: conditioning. From the moment you were born, everything around you reinforced the lie. But now, it's time to break the spell. It's time to see the prison for what it really is. Because once you do, you'll realize you were never truly inside it to begin with. The greatest prisons are not built from walls and chains. They are built from perception. And the most dangerous part? You don't even realize you're inside one. From the moment you opened your eyes as a child, you were given a version of reality. Not as it truly is, but as others have agreed to see it. You were told what things are called, what is possible, what is impossible. You were handed a script before you even knew you were an actor in a play. You were taught that reality is exactly what your senses tell you it is. Solid, external, absolute. But think about it. The colors you see, they aren't real. Your brain interprets wavelengths of light and assigns them meaning. The sounds you hear, they are vibrations, translated by your mind into something comprehensible. Even time, the very thing you base your entire life around, is not something you can touch, hold, or prove outside of perception. If everything you experience is just an interpretation, then what is real? The mind is a mirror, but instead of reflecting reality, it reflects its own conditioning. You don't see the world as it is. You see it as you are. This is why two people can look at the same event and experience it completely differently. One sees tragedy, the other sees opportunity. One feels pain, the other feels growth. The event itself is neutral. Only the mind makes it something more. But if the mind is shaping your reality, then what happens when the mind itself is shaped by illusion? Imagine a mirror covered in dust. The dust is your conditioning, your beliefs, your fears, your identity. When you look into the mirror, you think you're seeing yourself, but you're really just seeing the dust. You mistake the dirt for your own reflection. And this is how perception traps you, by making you believe that the conditioned mind is you. But it's not. It never was. Everything you think you are has been shaped by something outside of you. Your language limits what you can express. Your culture dictates what is considered normal or strange. Your education system teaches you what to think, not how to think. The moment you begin questioning the framework itself, you become dangerous. Because someone who sees past the illusion cannot be controlled by it. But the illusion fights back. The moment you start to question it, the mind resists. It says, "That can't be true. I know who I am. I know what's real." But do you? Every belief you have is borrowed. Every idea of who you are was planted in you before you had the ability to decide for yourself. So who would you be if none of that had ever happened? This is why spiritual traditions across the world have one thing in common: silence, meditation, self-inquiry, stillness. They don't give you answers, they take away the noise. Because only when the noise fades do you realize the truth. The prison was never locked. The door was never closed. You were just too distracted by illusions to see the way out. But escaping isn't as easy as just knowing the truth. Because by now, the illusion isn't just in your mind. It's in your body, your habits, your daily life. And even when you recognize it, something keeps pulling you back. That something is fear. The fear of losing everything you thought was real. But if none of it was real to begin with, then what exactly are you so afraid of? Fear. That's what keeps you here. Not physical chains, not external forces, just fear. The fear of losing your identity, the fear of the unknown, the fear of what happens when the mind no longer has control. This is how the illusion maintains itself. Because the moment you even consider letting go, the mind steps in and asks, "But then who will I be?" You see, the illusion isn't just something you were taught. It's something you now defend. You were conditioned to fight for it, to protect it, to build your entire existence around it. You believe you are a name, a personality, a collection of memories. But memories are just thoughts, and thoughts are fleeting. They appear, they disappear, and yet you remain. If you were your thoughts, you would cease to exist every time they stopped. But you don't. Something remains, something constant, something deeper than the mind. But how did we get here? How did we become so lost in a dream that we forgot we were dreaming? The answer is simple: repetition. From the moment you were born, reality was presented to you in a certain way. You were given a name, an identity, a nationality, a belief system. You were told what is good and bad, right and wrong. And every time you repeated those beliefs, they became stronger, more real, more a part of you. The more you said, "I am this," the more you believed it. Until one day, you forgot you were ever anything else. Society plays its role perfectly. It rewards those who stay inside the illusion and punishes those who step outside of it. It tells you that success means accumulation. More money, more status, more validation. It tells you that suffering means failure, that happiness is something you must chase, something external, something just out of reach. And so you keep running, never realizing that the act of chasing is what keeps you trapped. But the truth is, you were never trapped. The illusion only works if you believe in it. A child who is raised inside a cage doesn't try to escape, because they don't know there's anything outside of it. They accept the walls as reality. And that's what happened to you. The walls were built so early, so carefully, that you never thought to question them. But the moment you do, really do, you start to see the cracks. Think about a time when you felt truly free. Maybe it was as a child before the weight of the world pressed down on you. Maybe it was a fleeting moment standing under the stars, feeling something bigger than yourself. Maybe it was during deep conversation, losing yourself in the presence of another. In those moments, something inside you recognized the truth, not as an idea, not as a belief, but as a direct experience. But then, the mind pulled you back. It told you it was just a feeling, just a passing moment, nothing real, because that's the mind's job, to maintain the illusion, the ego, the identity, the sense of self. These are not your enemies. They are survival mechanisms. They exist because in a world of form, they help you navigate. But the problem is, they don't know when to stop. What was once a tool became your master, and now you are a prisoner of your own creation. But what happens when you stop believing in the illusion? What happens when you step back and realize that every identity you've ever held was just a story? That's when fear sets in. Because if you are not the identity, not the thoughts, not the labels, then what are you? This is the point where most people turn back. The illusion may be painful, but it's familiar. And the unknown? The unknown is terrifying. But here's the thing. The unknown is only terrifying to the mind, because the mind fears its own dissolution. But what if you are not the mind? What if the thing you've been afraid of losing was never you to begin with? The mind is loud, but the truth is silent. That's why you've never found it in books, philosophies, or even spiritual teachings. Words can only point to the truth, but they can never be the truth itself. You've spent your entire life trying to understand, trying to make sense of existence. But the mind was never meant to grasp something beyond itself. And yet, here you are, seeking, questioning, feeling something just beneath the surface. But here's what no one tells you. You were never supposed to find the answer through thinking. Thought is the very thing that keeps you in the illusion. It divides, categorizes, creates opposites, self and other, past and future, real and unreal. Thought is a tool, but you mistook it for the master. Enlightenment is not about gaining something. It's about losing everything that was never real. It's about peeling back layers of identity until nothing remains. And when nothing remains, what's left? The one thing that has always been here, awareness, silent, unmoving, infinite. The same awareness that is watching these words right now. But the mind resists. It will tell you, this is nonsense. I have a life. I have responsibilities. I have things to do. And yes, in the world of form, that's true. But you are not just form. You are the space that holds it all. The dreamer, not the dream. And once you realize this, the way you experience life changes forever. So how do you step beyond thought? How do you wake up from the dream? The answer is simple, but not easy. Stop identifying with the mind. Observe it. Watch it like you would watch clouds passing in the sky. A thought arises, and instead of reacting, you notice it. You don't judge it, don't resist it, don't believe it. You simply watch. And in that watching, something shifts. You begin to see that you are not the thoughts, but the awareness behind them. You are not the emotions, but the presence in which they arise. You are not even the body, but the space in which it appears. The more you watch, the more you detach. And the more you detach, the more the illusion starts to break apart. This is why meditation exists. Not to control the mind, not to force peace upon yourself, but to see clearly, to sit in stillness long enough that the illusion fades and reality reveals itself. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing enlightenment, when you stop looking for answers, when you surrender completely, that's when it happens. Because it was never something to be found. It was something you already were. But make no mistake, the ego will fight back. It has spent years reinforcing its existence, and it will not dissolve easily. It will flood you with thoughts, distractions, resistance. It will tell you this is pointless, that nothing has changed. And if you listen, you'll fall right back into the dream. That's why so few people awaken, not because the truth is hidden, but because they are too identified with their thoughts to let go. They fear that without their identity, without their opinions, without their past, they will be nothing. And they're right. They will be nothing, but only because they were never anything to begin with. And yet that nothing is the most profound thing of all, because it is not emptiness, not non-existence. It is pure, unshakable awareness, the source of all things, the ocean from which every wave arises and dissolves, the space in which everything happens. It is you. It has always been you. So why does the mind resist so much? Why does it fight so hard to maintain its illusion of control? The answer is buried deep within ancient teachings, hidden in symbols, texts, and esoteric knowledge that most people overlook. And among these teachings, one philosophy holds a key that is both liberating and dangerous: the truth about will. Most people live their entire lives following rules they never agreed to, chasing desires that were never truly their own. They follow routines dictated by others, beliefs inherited without question, and expectations placed upon them by a society that thrives on control. But beneath all of that, there is something deeper, a force, a drive, a knowing that whispers from within. A force so powerful that if you were to align with it, nothing could stop you. The ancients called it the will, and the moment you discover it, you become untouchable. The law of Thelema states, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." At first glance, it sounds like an invitation to indulgence, to chaos, to reckless abandon. But that's exactly what those in control want you to believe. They want you to think that true freedom is dangerous, that personal sovereignty is reckless. Because the last thing they want is for you to realize the truth. Will is not desire. Will is not impulse. Will is not ego. Your true will is not about doing whatever you want at the moment. It is not about pleasure-seeking or selfish gain. It is about living in complete harmony with the cosmic flow, moving with the current of existence instead of against it. It is the deeper force that has always been pulling you toward your purpose, beyond fear, beyond hesitation, beyond conditioning. Imagine a river. The water flows naturally, effortlessly, always moving toward its destination. The river does not question itself, does not doubt its path. It does not try to flow backward or stop itself out of fear. It simply moves. That is how true will operates. It is not forced, not manufactured. It just is. But the illusion keeps you from seeing it. Society teaches you to conform, to obey, to silence that inner knowing. The system replaces your true will with artificial desires, money, status, approval, distractions designed to keep you from ever questioning whether you were meant for something greater. This is why most people feel lost. They are chasing things that were never meant for them, wondering why they feel empty even when they get everything they thought they wanted. Because they are not following their will. They are following someone else's plan. But when you uncover your true will, everything changes. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop wasting time on things that don't align with you. You move through life with an unshakable certainty, not because you know every step, but because you no longer fear where the path leads. When you move with will, obstacles crumble, resistance fades, and life aligns itself in ways you never thought possible. So how do you find it? The answer isn't in logic, it isn't in planning. It is in stripping away everything that isn't yours. Every belief, every expectation, every false desire, let them go. What remains, what still pulls you forward despite the fear, despite the doubt, that is your will. That is your purpose. Aleister Crowley called it thelema, but this idea existed long before him. Every mystic, every enlightened being, every awakened soul has spoken of this force in different words. The Taoists called it the way. The Hindus called it dharma. The Buddhists called it right action. It is all the same thing, the movement of the universe expressing itself through you. And the best part? The moment you align with it, you become unstoppable. No external authority can dictate your path. No fear can hold you back. You no longer need permission. You no longer need validation. Because when you act from true will, you are no longer acting as a separate individual. You are acting as the universe itself. This is why thelema is so feared. Not because it is dangerous, but because it is liberating. A person who knows their will cannot be manipulated, cannot be controlled, cannot be made to live in fear. They do not look to governments, religions, or social structures to define their purpose. They already know who they are. And that kind of person is a threat to every system built on control. But here's the catch. Knowing your will is only the beginning. Because once you see through the illusion, once you recognize the force that has been calling you your entire life, you are faced with a choice. Will you follow it, or will you turn away? Because stepping into your will means stepping beyond comfort, beyond safety, beyond everything the illusion has convinced you to cling to. And most people, even after glimpsing the truth, turn back. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you choose to step into your power, to embody this forcefully? That's where the real transformation begins. That's where you stop seeking and start becoming. Because enlightenment was never about knowledge. It was about action. It was about living the truth you now see. And that's where most people fail. Because the final step of awakening is the hardest, bringing this realization into the world, living it every single day in everything you do. But those who do, they change everything. So how do you live as an awakened being in a world that thrives on illusion? The answer is simpler than you think, but it demands everything from you. The moment you wake up, the world doesn't change. You do. Everything around you stays the same. The people, the routines, the distractions, the illusions, they are all still there, playing out as they always have. But now, you see them for what they are. The veil has lifted, and you are no longer fooled. The question is, what do you do now? For most, awakening is a moment, not a transformation. They glimpse the truth, feel the weight of realization, and then, slowly, they slip back into their old patterns. The illusion welcomes them back with open arms, ready to lull them to sleep again. And so, they go on as before, carrying the knowledge of something greater, but never truly embodying it. This is the greatest tragedy, seeing the exit and choosing to stay in the cage. But for those who refuse to turn away, for those who step beyond knowing and into being, life itself becomes something else entirely. Because awakening is not an event. It is a practice, a way of moving through the world, a way of existing that is entirely different from the one you were conditioned to accept. Living as an awakened being does not mean withdrawing from life. It does not mean renouncing the world, abandoning responsibilities, or pretending that nothing matters. On the contrary, It means engaging with life fully, but without attachment, without illusion, without the false sense of self dictating your every move. It means moving with complete presence, seeing things as they are, and acting from a place of clarity rather than fear. The first thing you will notice is that fear begins to lose its power over you. The worries that once consumed you, what others think, what the future holds, whether you are enough, begin to fade. Not because life becomes easier, but because you no longer identify with the part of you that clings to fear. You begin to see fear as just another thought, another passing cloud in the sky of awareness. And once you see fear for what it is, it loses its control over you. The second thing that happens is that you stop chasing. The endless search for meaning, for validation, for success, it no longer controls you. Because you realize you were never lacking to begin with. You were never missing anything. You are not here to become something greater. You are here to recognize that you already are. But the most profound shift of all is in how you move through life. When you no longer act out of fear, when you no longer seek external validation, when you are no longer attached to illusion, you move differently. You begin to live in alignment with your true will, not because you are forcing anything, but because there is no longer resistance. The flow of existence moves through you effortlessly, and you find yourself exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do. People will notice. Some will be drawn to it, sensing something unshakable in you. Others will resist it, feeling unsettled by something they cannot define. Because when you stop playing by the rules of illusion, you disrupt the entire game. The world around you expects conformity, predictability, and obedience. But you no longer fit into those expectations. You are something else now, something beyond. But living this way comes with a challenge, because once you see through the illusion, you cannot unsee it. You will walk through a world where people are still trapped in falsehoods, still clinging to identities that are not real, still suffering over things that do not exist. And you will want to wake them up. You will want to shake them, to tell them what you now know, to pull them out of the dream. But you cannot, because awakening is not something you can force upon others. Just as no one could have forced you to see before you were ready, you cannot force anyone else. You can only be an example. You can only embody the truth, live it fully, and let those who are ready find their own way. That is the greatest act of service. Not preaching, not convincing, but simply being. And as you walk this path, one truth will become undeniable. The world is not something happening to you. It is something happening through you. You are not in life. Life is in you. You are not separate from existence. You are existence itself. And when you finally live from this understanding, you realize something incredible. The struggle was never real. The search was never necessary. The fear was never yours to begin with. Most people will never reach this point. They will stay trapped, believing they are just a person, just a name, just a body moving through time. They will stay locked in the illusion because it is familiar, because it is safe, because waking up requires losing everything they thought they were. But you are different. Because you made it here, you are listening, you are remembering. And now, there's only one thing left to do. Live it. Because knowing the truth is meaningless if you don't embody it. Seeing the illusion is useless if you still play by its rules. Awakening is not about what you know. It is about what you do with it. And the question is, will you take the final step? Will you stop thinking about it and start living it? Because this is where everything changes. Not in theory, not in understanding, but in action. But whether you take that step or not, one thing is now certain. You can never go back. You can never unsee the truth. The only question is what you do with it. The moment you saw through the illusion, the path before you changed forever. You can try to forget, try to return to the comfort of old habits, but something inside you won't let you. Because once you wake up, you can never fully go back to sleep. You might pretend for a while, might distract yourself, might convince yourself that the realization was just a passing thought. But deep down, you know better. Something in you has shifted. And now you have a choice. You can resist it, fight against it, try to hold on to the old self, the old beliefs, the old fears. But all that will bring is suffering, because the truth doesn't bend to illusion. The only way forward is to step into what you now know, to embody the realization, to live from the understanding that you are not separate, never have been, never will be. But here's where most people fail. They treat awakening as an idea rather than a way of being. They intellectualize it, turn it into a philosophy, discuss it, debate it, but never live it. They remain on the threshold, afraid to step fully into the unknown. But that's not real awakening. That's just another trap of the mind. Because enlightenment is not knowledge. It is not something you learn, something you achieve, something you chase. It is what remains when everything false falls away. It is who you are when you stop believing the lies you were told about yourself. And that cannot exist as a thought. It can only exist as action, as presence, as direct experience. So ask yourself, how will you move through this world now? How will you live, knowing what you know? Will you allow fear to pull you back into the illusion? Or will you move with certainty, with clarity, with the knowing that you are something beyond name, beyond thought, beyond time? Because the world needs more awakened beings. Not people who just talk about truth, but people who embody it. People who walk through life unattached to illusion, unafraid of judgment, untouched by the conditioning that keeps so many trapped. People who are free, not just in mind, but in action. And this is where your real journey begins. Not with more thinking, more analyzing, more seeking, but with being. With standing in your truth, not as an idea, but as a reality. With moving through the world, not as a person trying to become something, but as something that has already arrived. Most will never reach this point. They will continue searching, continue chasing, and continue clinging to the illusion because it feels safe. But you are standing at the edge, looking into the infinite. You have a choice that most will never even realize they have. The world will try to pull you back. The distractions will come. The conditioning will whisper. But now, you know too much. You cannot unsee what has been revealed. The only thing left is what you do with it. And if you are ready to go deeper, if you are ready to connect with those who understand what can't be spoken openly, then join Insight's Academy below. This is where we go beyond the surface, beyond the illusion, beyond what they allow to be shared. And for a limited time, you'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion, a text that has guided seekers for generations, but only if you take the step. Because those who hesitate stay asleep. Those who act awaken. The choice is yours. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."